first thing you'll need to make the Scrappy Mountain Ranges quilt is the Mountain Ranges pattern, and I'll link that below. The first 10 pages of the pattern are instructions for the quilt, and the rest of the pattern is all foundations, so many foundations, and we'll talk about those later. The second thing you'll need is fabric. You'll need about 3 3/4 yards of background fabric and about 3 yards of scrappy fabric for the mountains. And it can be scrap from you can make the mountains from scraps or from fat quarters or yardage, whatever you want. We recommend for the background fabric that it be either very dark or very light fabric, and that the print on it be small or tone on tone so that the mountains can really pop and stand out. If there's not enough contrast between the background and the mountains will just get lost and muddied and blend into the background, and we don't want that. You will also want to avoid using directional fabric for the background. The fabric's going to be facing multiple directions, and like I wouldn't want this text going this way and then this way and then this way. So something that doesn't have an up or a down. You'll also want to avoid fabrics with a large print. The large print in this fabric would blend into the mountains, and the mountains would just be harder to see against this. So small tone on tone prints, very light or very dark. When thinking about the size of the prints, when you're making the larger blocks, you can use larger prints, but large prints in the small blocks wouldn't work as well because the print would interfere with the lines of the mountains and the snow peaks. But if I was making a small block, I'd choose something small that has a very simple print. Let's talk about what you'll need to do to prepare to sew. You can pre-cut all of your background fabric or cut it as you go. I would suggest pre-cutting it at least partially. There are a lot of strips that get cut down to a lot of lengths to make all these mountains fit together. And I would suggest cutting all of the foundation, but waiting to cut the strips down into the rectangles you'll need until you're actually making that row, and to cut the rectangles as you need them. You can cut them all ahead of time. That would work just fine, but you'll really need to label every single rectangle so you don't get them confused. And that's just hard for me. So I'm gonna cut as I go. You can also pre-cut all of the triangles that you'll need to go on the sides of the mountains. You'll also want to label these triangles so you know which triangles go with which foundation. You'll also want to prepare the foundations. Each of these mountains is foundation paper pieced, and all of the foundations are found in the pattern. There is a table that will show you how many foundations of each type and of each size to print. You can print the needed foundations as you go, as you make each row, or you can pre-print all of the foundations and organize them according to week. This will take a little bit longer, but will save you time in the long run. What you'll do is, after you'll print all of the foundations, you'll look in the instructions, and there are diagrams for the construction of each row. You'll look and see which foundations you need for that row, bundle those together, paper clip them, and write row 10 or row 3 on it. And then you'll be ready to go when you're making that row. If you're feeling extra ambitious, you can see which spacing strips and background triangles you'll need and put those with your foundations in a Ziploc bag, so you'll have everything ready to go. But that would be above and beyond. So don't feel like you have to do that. I am so glad that you're sewing along with me and that we get to make this quilt together. And thank you for liking this pattern enough to sew along with me. I'm glad you're here and I can't wait to sew with you.